Hi, this is Will James. Over the next few minutes, I'd like to discuss rigging and some of the safety features of the new North Fifth Element bar. Let's go down to the beach and check out the conditions.
Go ahead and inflate your kite. Begin by inflating the struts first, followed by the main bladder. After inflating your kite, put it face down on the beach and scoop sand onto the canopy to keep the kite from blowing away. Once you've taken a look at conditions and are ready to rig, it's important to pick out a good place to launch your kite. Pick an area where you'll be able to lay out lines completely, which is free of snags and branches, and provides a safe distance from any obstacles that may be downwind of you. Lay out all your lines first. Put your bar in the sand, then go back and start sorting your lines out. Start by separating the two back lines first from the fifth line and the front lines. After the back lines are cleared, go back and separate the front lines and the fifth line. By putting each line between a finger of your hand, you can easily separate the front and the fifth lines. It's a good idea to bury each line up to its head in sand in order to keep the lines from getting blown or kicked around before hooking them up to the kite. After you've got all your lines laid out and have the kite inflated, begin by hooking the fifth line up first. After you have the fifth line hooked up, go ahead and hook the back and front lines up just like you would on a normal 4-line kite. Using the Northkiteboarding polarized line connectors, it's impossible to hook up the lines backwards. Not only are the lines color-coded, but the connections are polarized, meaning that the front lines have a loop which connects to a knot on the kite and vice versa for the back lines. This solves the most dangerous rigging mistake, hooking lines up backwards. Once you're ready for the kite to be launched, you should signal to your beautiful assistant that you're ready to go. Both rider and launcher should double check that the lines aren't crossed or tangled, and should affirm this by giving a thumbs up prior to launching. Once the kite is in the air, it should be kept at a 45-degree angle and pointing out at sea. This will prevent lofting, and if you're extremely overpowered, it will drag you safely towards the water. Correct fifth line trim is critical for your kite to fly properly. When you fully sheet in, the fifth line should become loose and should sag a bit in the wind. Notice in this shot the fifth line sagging when I pull in the bar all the way. If the fifth line does not become loose when fully sheeted in, then it's too tight and you need to lengthen it. An easy solution is to grab an extra pigtail, which can be found in the secret pocket on the wingtips of your kite. A kite which has a tight fifth line will feel unstable and jerky, and the bar will feel heavy and weighted. If the fifth line is extended all the way, but still does not become loose when fully sheeted in, you might have to add one or more pigtails in order to achieve the right line length. Once you've got the length of the fifth line properly adjusted, it's time to tune the sheeting range of the kite. When fully sheeted in, the back and front lines should be under even tension, and the ears of the kite should just start to flare out as shown here. When fully sheeted out, the back line should be loose, and the kite should be flying off the front and fifth lines. Although the back line should not be under much tension and should be slack in the wind, they should not be too loose either. Attach your safety leash to your spreader bar, and the other end of the leash to the end of the fifth line located on the micro hook. One of the great advantages to the fifth element bar is the innovative leash system. By attaching a leash at the base of the fifth line just above the chicken loop, you have a system that provides complete kite depower, yet doesn't get affected if you spin your bar after doing spinning or looping tricks. The North micro hook is a clever invention that takes the place of a bulky conventional fixed harness line. When hooked in, you should be fully sheeted in and tension should be fairly even on front and back lines. The micro hook can be used to hold the bar tension when riding through a lull, or in an instance where you may want to take one hand off the bar while doing a board off or a grab. Adjusting your power strap changes the relative line length between front and back lines and adjusts the angle of attack of the kite. To depower, pull the buckle located furthest away from your body. Alternatively, pull the buckle located closest to you in order to lengthen the front lines and put the power back into the kite. The extension located in the middle of the chicken loop is commonly known as the chicken tip. The chicken tip prevents you from accidentally coming undone from the chicken loop while riding. After you hook in, insert the extension into your spreader hook and you will prevent accidentally popping out of the chicken loop. In the unlikely event of a water landing, it's great to have a kite equipped with a fifth element bar. One of the great features of the fifth element system is how quickly you are now able to relaunch your kite from just about any position. When relaunching the kite from the face down position, first try to roll the kite onto its back, then let the kite fly itself on the water to the side of the wind window until it is ready to launch. By grabbing the fifth line an arm's length above the bar, pulling and holding onto the fifth line, you'll pull in on the nose of the kite and flip the kite partially over onto its back. Once the kite is rolled partially onto its back, figure out towards which edge of the wind window it wants to fly and continue holding tension on the fifth line. You can control the power of the kite during the relaunch by holding onto the fifth line, gradually easing tension on the fifth line as the kite launches itself. The second most common relaunch scenario is one where the kite is resting on the water on its side at the edge of the wind window. In this scenario, the upper wingtip is stuck down in the water, and pulling on a few inches of fifth line tension will facilitate a quick launch. Sometimes a couple quick tugs on the fifth line is all you need to get the kite turned around and opened up enough to relaunch. The first tricks you'll probably learn kiting are the back loop and front loop. Let's start by demonstrating a simple back loop. Initiate the back loop by carving up wind and leading back simultaneously. The kite should be about 45 degrees or higher in the window when you're first learning the trick. The most important thing to remember during a back loop is that where your head goes, your body will follow. If you find yourself coming through the rotation slowly, turn your head as much as possible and try to spot the landing. By turning your head, your shoulders and hips will follow, and you'll more than likely make it through the rotation with no problems. You can also easily control your rotation by pulling in your legs during the maneuver to increase the speed of the rotation. Once you've got the back loop down, you should start experimenting with the front loop. Again, you should start trying the trick with the kite at a higher angle at first, bringing the kite down to more of a powered position as you gain skill and confidence. To initiate a good roll, it's important to start the jump with a little pop similar to the back and out motion of a railie. It's important to simultaneously rotate forward with your head and shoulders. These two motions done together will provide the needed forward rotation to complete the trick. Once you have the rotation down, practice coming out of the jump with speed by pulling down more aggressively with your front hand. The handle pass is one of the most difficult moves in kiteboarding. There are no great secrets to pulling handle passes, but you really need to commit yourself to the move. The number one mistake people make when they first start learning how to handle pass is that they don't reach around enough when it's time to grab the bar behind their back. You really have to stretch your hand around back there and grab it. Once you have the confidence to go for it, you'll start pulling it off consistently. Other than that, handle passes are just like any other trick. Study them in videos, visualize them in your head, pick the right day and go for it. Practice makes perfect. Once the session is over and you're ready to deflate your kite, start by deflating the wingtip dump valve first. This will give you the ability to completely roll up the kite from the other side. After the main bladder is deflated, you can deflate the struts quickly using the Northkiteboarding deflator pins located on each valve. If you find your kite is losing air pressure, you probably need to remove the bladder and check for leaks. Lay the kite out and start by going to one wingtip of the kite, reaching into the tip and unfolding the wingtip cap. Find the bladder and pull it out a few inches. Unwind your kite lines and attach one line to the bladder, securing it with an overhand knot. This line will allow you to quickly pull the bladder back into the kite after you've made the repair. Pull the bladder out of the kite, inflate it, and check for leaks. If a leak is very hard to detect, it may be necessary to completely immerse the bladder in water to find the leak. In many cases, however, you can hear the general area of a leak almost immediately and pinpoint it right there on the beach. Once you've located the hole, gently scuff the area with the sandpaper included in the bladder repair kit. Make sure the area is dry and free of salt residue before applying one of the patches. Once the patch is applied, work it in with pressure from your fingers to ensure good adhesion. Once the repair has been made, it's time to get the bladder back into the leading edge of the kite. Reattach your kite line to the bladder tip and fold the bladder neatly before getting ready to pull it through. You really want to avoid getting the bladder twisted during this step, so fold the bladder neatly and you'll be able to feed it into the leading edge without twists. It's good to have a helper at this point to help you pull the bladder into the kite. Carefully feed the bladder back into the kite, trying to avoid twists. Once the bladder is pulled through, untie the kite line from the bladder, stick the exposed bladder back into the tip of the kite, and replace the end cap.